Good evening, Micky.
Oh, good evening, Gregory. Antonio.
Hello, Micky.
Day 50. Hey, Alan. JJ.
Hey, Micky.
What's up, Charles? Zach, I think you've got to make Charles a speaker. Ah, there it is.
Hello.
What up?
Yay, everybody.
Hey, Charles, how you doing, man? All good in the hood?
Up at the ranch right now, just enjoying life.
I miss that place. I'm sure JJ doesn't miss the Chili's though.
I'm sure he doesn't.
The Carolina Reapers, man. That's the one.
You took that Reaper like a champion. Not many people have the courage to take the Reaper challenge.
Well, we saw Dickin afterwards, didn't we? But he's not here to defend himself, so I won't speak of him. Alan, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How is warm Dubai?
It's getting hot, yes. But it's good.
Air conditioning and more air conditioning, please.
It's not too bad in the evening.
Charles, you can tell we're Brits talking about the weather, right?
But Alan, you'll get used to it after about 15 years.
A few years to go.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Charles, how are you? It's Andy.
Loving life. I'm out here in rough and rugged Wyoming, and the weather is just absolutely perfect. It's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I guess you guys just have to do your crazy conversion to Celsius.
Comfortable.
Yes, like summer.
UK is really nice as well. We had a brilliant bank holiday weekend.
You're just trying to make yourself feel good now, Andy, right?
Well, we had to put up with a long winter, but I'm sure it was cold in Wyoming as well.
It was absolutely brutal. It was one of the worst winters I think we've ever had.
Yeah, we kept hearing about the snowpacks being really thick in the States.
All right, Mike. Are we ready?
We got everybody in. Everybody set up.
Ready to go.
Give it another minute or so for people to join.
You're fresh back from Zanzibar.
I am.
When did you arrive?
Arrived back on Monday, so now back in the land of stable internet. Touch wood, after spending some time in Zanzibar. As I'm sure many people listening are aware and saw some of the videos, pictures, speed tests that we did over there. Josie's unfortunately ill today, so join me in sending her best wishes, because unfortunately you're stuck with me as host. But I'm sure we're going to have a good one.
I'm sure we're going to manage, although we wish Josie a very speedy recovery.
Right, let's get started. So I'm Mike, Marketing Director at World Mobile Group, responsible for all things comms and community. Micky, do you want to introduce yourself? You don't need an introduction, but
Micky,
for anyone who hasn't
known as Mr. Telecom, here to connect the unconnected and serve the underserved.
Next up, I'll hand over to Antonio.
Hey there, Antonio, CTO and co-founder, and the person in charge of the software department.
Thanks, Antonio. And Alan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, Alan, Chief Operating Officer. I have to deliver on the vision and in charge of planning, communicating, regulations, and all the fun stuff.
We'll hand over next to Mr. James Tagg.
Obviously, I don't get to do the fun stuff like Alan. So chief architect, also co-founder. I do all sorts of radio, mobile technology things.
And next up, we've got Andrew.
Hey, everybody. Andrew, one of the co-founders. I'm in charge of country operations. Also, a lot of just general governance through the group. Yeah, so in charge of lots of stuff, lots of background in East Africa. And if you've got any questions, just feel free to ask questions in the community.
And we'll hand over to Gregory.
Hi, everyone. This is Gregory. I'm head of Aerostat activities, everything to do with aerostats and, in the future, HAPS, lighter than air, helium, and using them to connect everybody. Thank you.
And we've also got Mr. Zach Lilly on the decks today.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Really excited for another edition of the community update. I think, this is going to be a special one.
Definitely is. We've also got Karen, community manager, in the audience. We've also got Hannah as well, Bridged Future, who you may have seen from our blogs and has also been present on some of the E&O Alliance spaces in recent weeks. But today's a special day. We've got a very special guest joining us, if you're not aware already. It's Mr. Charles Hoskinson.
Good to be here,
Hello,
everybody.
Charles.
Hi from rough and rugged Wyoming, and I can't wait to have a lively conversation.
We're delighted to have you with us, Charles. And I've actually got a few questions for you, and I think that'll be a good place to kick off this edition of the World Mobile Community Update. Ask a few questions, and then we'll open the floor actually to some of the community. I'm sure they're bursting to ask you a number of things, especially around the recent release of Marlowe as well, which is very exciting. So to kick things off, Charles, so far this year, we've announced our US launch, Pakistan launch, the commercial launch in Zanzibar, our global app. We've got Scan to Earn and much, much more coming. And I really wanted to know what has got you most excited about World Mobile's deployment and development roadmap for 2023.
Well, I mean, the most important thing is actually getting real customers, getting them to connect with their phones, get bandwidth, and do it with the end-to-end business model. And this is really the first year where all of that came together. And I think you guys have 5 figures worth of customers now in Zanzibar playing with the network. And that's the hardest thing to do, because when you build these things, you have to build them in pieces. There's stuff on the regulatory compliance, there's stuff related to Aerostats or other form of broadcast. There's a ton of software that needs to be written, a lot of very delicate hardware that needs to be figured out, and you can make enormous progress in every part. But the hardest part is to pull all of those pieces together and get it to a point where at least one person can use it. And then you go from one set of challenges to a very different set of challenges. So all of your constituent components go to an optimization instead of an innovation and ideation phase. And then your business people can start talking about scale. And oftentimes, if you bet correctly on the technology and on the business model, the scale is actually something that can be achieved in short order. It's also really cool to see the first set of experiments required to really get this to work in a blockchain environment. And I think a lot of very good and sensible choices have been made by the World Mobile team to explore the blockchain side of it. And by no means is that the end all be all. It's the beginning of a very long and vibrant conversation to not only connect the unconnected, but connect the unconnected in a global decentralized network that doesn't have kings or lords over it, but rather it's owned by the people. So it's great to see you guys kind of grow from an idea to a reality, and it's great to see a place I visited not too long ago actually start getting connectivity. That's a really cool and amazing achievement.
That's a really important point, what you've just ended on there. I mean, I've now seen it for myself firsthand, and the impact of what we're delivering in Zanzibar to the people there is just incredible to see in terms of the empowerment and opportunities that it opens up for them. Micky, I'm not sure if you want to follow that with anything. So I think that.
Sure. I guess some of the questions that people are thinking about, what's as we move from the Basho era into the Voltaire phases of a roadmap, what opportunities do you see in Charles for Cardano?
Well, what's really great is Cardano made a lot of good foundational design decisions. Like, for example, the high availability of stateful operators, because of the stake model we have, you can exploit that in two different dimensions. One dimension is to increase throughput, and then the other dimension is to increase finality. And so we have two protocols that are under heavy design right now, Ouroboros Laos and Ouroboros Paris. Paris, we should be able to get that paper published sometime during the summertime, and hopefully Laos is the same. And that kind of realizes what we were trying to achieve with input endorsers, but also instant finality or fast finality inside the system. And the plumbing and foundations have already been laid to accommodate that thanks to the design of Ouroboros. So that's one dimension that's really exciting. Seeing Hydra hit mainnet is another dimension that's really exciting, because that's an open source project and it's going to just snowball and grow really rapidly. And every few weeks you get more capabilities, and then when you look at the horizon, like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, you really start using that as a pivotal component to not only scale the applications but increase operational resilience and reliability, and also reduce operating costs, meaning the actual on-chain costs go down. There's also been tremendous progress with things like Atala Prism, which has just hit V2, and we have the Prism cohorts and the Did Dragons program. And what we've noticed is that a lot of people are starting to do really cool things with Prism. Everything from getting the Maori people in New Zealand, onto a blockchain, and that's a super interesting not only governance model but also potentially credit scoring and alternative banking system, especially in the developing world, to things like using Prism in regulated contexts, basically being that bridge between TradFi and DeFi. And the fact that hit version 2 after 5 years of development, and now it's really starting to move in the enterprise direction, and it's going to become a pivotal component, I think, to everything we do in the next few months and years. And then also just execution on other parts of the roadmap, like SIP 1694 is going to turn Cardano into the largest DAO in the entire cryptocurrency industry. 3 million users, $13 billion of value under management. That's just a colossal exercise in decentralized governance. And really what it does is it's going to make Cardano best in class in terms of decentralization and resilience, which means it's a very reliable backbone to deploy and build on, because that it has the same level of resilience that Bitcoin has, but it moves much faster because it has decentralized governance. But I think most pertinent to World Mobile is probably going to be the directionality of where sidechains are going. And we've had a lot of great lessons learned from exploring different things like Hyperledger Fabric, Cosmos, Parity Substrate, Scorex, and then what we've done with Mamba, as well as what DC Spark has done with Milkomeda. And what's happened is that all those lessons are now starting to aggregate into kind of a new framework, which is inspired by ideas from all of those, and in some cases gets some interoperability with things that are achieved in those areas, but then also brings some really new exciting technologies to market. So what's cool is that the people who are kind of building these pseudo side chains like the Milkomeda or what you guys are doing with Cosmos, there'll be a home for them over time to migrate to, and that home is not only going to be an amazing home because it has all these new capabilities, but it's going to be the fastest and most secure home of any of the sidechain models that we have in the ecosystem, the broader cryptocurrency ecosystem. And that's a home that's been future-proofed because it has basically at your fingertips an identity framework. It has Hydra, it has Mithril, it has great technologies like Lace that are basically there and ready to go, and very user-centric, very person-centric, and ultimately best in class. So I'm really excited about the next 24 months. I think they're the most active months we've ever had in the history of Cardano. Every metric looks great. The TVL has been increasing very dramatically. Today, I think we had $66 million of transactions on DEXs and Cardano. The transaction volume continues to go up, and the development velocity continues to increase. There's over 225 dApps built on Cardano, and more to come. And we're just getting started. And people are starting to realize that this is the future paradigm in every category. Good governance, good eye on where you're going to get scalability and performance from, a really good eye on software security with the Plutus development model. But now Marlowe's out, so also a really good eye on generative code, no code and low code, these types of things. It's just a well thought out, well oiled machine. And yeah, there's always some rough edges here and there, but you always look to the horizon and say, where are we going to be in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years? And if you bet right, you start ending up looking like these exponential technologies, like large language models. And if you bet wrong,
and that's starting to happen now.
Exactly right. Yeah, and if you bet,
all coming together.
And if you bet wrong, then everything goes to hell. And you fall behind competition. And I think people are starting to realize that we bet right in 2015, and we're starting to cash those checks.
I agree. We're super excited about Hydra. You've preempted some of the questions that we had to ask you, particularly Marlowe as well. How do you feel Marlowe is going to change the scape of things right now?
Well, Marlowe's kind of like three different dimensions to really help out. One is it shows how to do DSLs in Cardano. So people say, I don't want to be a Haskell developer. I don't want to learn Plutus. I don't want to do it. Well, that's fine. So what if we have more languages available that perhaps have more developer accessibility, or they're purpose-built for certain applications? Like, technically speaking, you could use Java, stock Java, to go and program a relational database management system and use Java to manage tables and memory and these types of things. Or you can use SQL, and it's significantly easier and very optimized to use SQL to do that. Well, similarly, purpose-built DSLs allow you to start thinking along a business domain. So the case of Marlowe, they say you have complex financial transactions, and yes, you could write these in Solidity, you could write these in Plutus, but if you have like a purpose-built language like SQL that basically allows you to do that, you have a much simpler development experience and also a much easier time testing your correctness and verifying that there's no bugs or mistakes. The second thing is, because you have a simpler language that can be verified with a SAT solver, it turns out that the directionality of Copilot and these other technologies that LLMs are using, like GPT or Google Bard, it means code generation is substantially easier. So if you want to move towards a world where you can develop an application with the assistance of generative AI and you want the code to be correct and machine verified, a simple DSL is a substantially easier lift than a full stack programming language. So where and when you can use DSLs, you can get exponential productivity using AI assistance. And the next 12, 24 months, that's going to be the fastest area of growth in development. And the third thing is that once you have a good DSL model, then you can start rapidly deploying new DSLs to cover different domains. For example, you could create DSLs for network logic and packet routing and these types of things, really important in the telecommunications space, especially as you price the price of bandwidth. You create DSLs for legal contracts. These, like Open Law is exploring this, and Katala is another project for that. So you can actually embed into the smart contract the end user license agreement, the intellectual property rights, super important in the NFT space, which is mostly an IP space for the moment, and in other DSLs like that. But each time you do it, easier to use AI, easier to reason about the code, much less lines of code, much higher security because the model is very restrictive. And that improves ultimately developer productivity. So we're super excited to see Marlowe hit market, and the next 3 to 6 months are going to be a lot of fun as people start playing around and using it, and especially with Plutus version 2. There's a lot of dApps that have finally migrated to it. They're getting a 10x boost in transaction efficiency and size, and a huge reduction in transaction cost. So it's really exciting to see those two technologies come together, and it's going to be real good for the Cardano ecosystem.
So a couple of questions from me, a couple more. I don't know many people as busy as myself or certain members of our team, but you are one of them. Like, when do you get time to sleep, man? You've got a lot going on, right?
Well, yeah, but it helps to be passionate about it, and also it helps to have great people. We both, I think, are quite
100%.
fortunate in that we have great teams around us that we can delegate to and actually get things done. So, behind me, I have Tamara Hassan and Jer and all these amazing people, and they really kick ass, and so given that we have that delegation capacity, I can sleep well at night because I know that the sun never quite sleeps. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's becoming hard because there's a lot of things that we have to learn quickly. Like, I didn't anticipate that I'd have to become a domain expert on artificial intelligence this year, but I have to if I'm going to keep up with what's happening in that field. I also didn't anticipate that I'd have to become like a regulation expert this year because there's MiCA framework and all this other stuff happening, and the next few years they're actually going to lay the rules for cryptocurrency down.
You got to know what's going down when
Yeah.
you're the boss, right? If you don't know everything, how do you know everything? You can have the best people to delegate to, but if you don't know, it's not correct.
Exactly.
So talking about AI, we've obviously got James Tagg on the line. He's an author of an AI book. Not that I'm trying to pump his book or anything by promoting that to the 400 people listening. But we've actually been playing for a long time with AI because we see the AI in customer support, AI in blockchain-based loans. So what is your preference when it comes down to playing around on the internet? Are you a Chat GPT guy or a Google Bard guy? Or are you a bit of both?
Well, I'm a multi-model guy, and there's a lot of really cool things like stability diffusion and Palm 2 is the technology behind Bard, and actually that's a red herring. The Google has unified their entire AI group towards a project called Gemini, and it's currently under training, but it looks like it's going to probably have, in terms of transformers, 10 to 100 times more than GPT-4. But more importantly, it'll have multimodal generative capacity, so it can operate on video, images, and text in audio in addition to just text. And what's so crazy is that Google has the largest training set in the world because they own YouTube and also Google Image, and these two things alone are going to leapfrog it. The really interesting thing is, and I'd love to get James in on this and others, is the RLHF component. So there's kind of 4 stages when you train these large language models, and the pre-processing is the most computationally intensive one, and that's why they buy, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of NVIDIA GPUs and run them for 9 months. But then there's 3 other stages, the last of which is called RLHF, and that's reinforcement learning with human feedback. And that reinforcement learning component, that is very time intensive. So it's computationally not interesting, but it requires real life human beings to sit down and do some very specific tasks to try to orient the LLM towards a skill domain, whether it be medicine or law. But what's really interesting is it looks like these models we have today are going to be able to do RLHF with autonomous agents. So instead of having super expensive human labor to orient your large language model to be a useful assistant, you now can actually use the system to improve the system. But then once you've done that, you can use the system to improve the system again. And you're kind of seeing that with like chain of thoughts and tree of thoughts and reflection and these types of things where they can pursue that. The other really curious thing is that the token size is quite constrained right now for the LLMs. That's kind of the search space that has available to it. I think GPT is around 32,000, but there's papers coming out where the token size is over 1 million. And there's also a lot of discussion about prompt engineering, where you're kind of using multi-agents to help you design prompts and orient the AI in a way that you can get a much better result. You're seeing this especially with the plugin environments that are coming. So the next 12 months are just going to be batshit crazy. And I think there's an urgency because there is actually a scenario, probably greater than 50%, that within 18 months we will have something that is a world super expert in every skill domain that matters in the knowledge economy at your fingertips, and it's available basically for free or near free for any task. And I don't know how business transforms under that reality. It's a pretty crazy reality.
I think it's great and potentially a nightmare, right? James, are androids dreaming? This is the question.
Well, I mean, my book is about where it is. I mean, you've seen discussions about, can there be a GPT-5 or 6 simply by increasing the knowledge base or the number of elements in the model. And the general answer was no, because there's not that much knowledge left out there to hoover up. There's obviously a lot of specialist knowledge in doctors and lawyers and so on, but in general, written knowledge there isn't. And then what's the problem? And the problem is hallucination. How do you persuade an AI to understand what's a real answer and what's a fictitious answer? And that's for mathematically fundamentally the problem. That's the Gödel completeness problem, which is how does an AI without humans helping it work out when it's got it wrong and when it needs to extend its model?
Yeah, and it is an interesting, I think, a multi-model approach where you use different agents that have been trained under different data sets to act as the verifier proposer. Probably would help tremendously with hallucination. And this is why also prompt engineering is so important. One second. Excuse me. So, like chain of thoughts or these other prompt techniques that people have come up with for use of LLMs, they basically help you kind of hit the LLM again and again and say, are you certain? And it kind of, over time, converges to something that has a low probability of hallucination. But I agree that we're kind of running out of high-quality, publicly accessible data. But this is why Microsoft and Google are such a threat in this space, because they have gargantuan aggregations of data from billions of users that's proprietary and private. So that's a training set that still is virgin territory and untapped. And I think we'll max out the computational limits because they've gone from general purpose computing to ASICs for these transformer architectures. And once they train the next models with them, then at that point you're not, Moore's law comes into play, and you're just not really able to get any more, any more computational oomph. So you're kind of constrained with the level of parameters inside the system, and then it's just all about optimization, and that's where the RLHF is so important for orientation. And that's, if it can be done autonomously, is where you're going to get the exponential growth in the AI.
Well, it's the understanding agents, right? At the moment, most of the models are very statistical. They don't understand. The visual way of understanding that is Midjourney, right? You have beautiful models that are generated by Midjourney with a very short prompt, but that have 6 fingers, or their arm points in the wrong direction, right? So Midjourney just doesn't have any concept of anatomy and biology and what actually works and how humans grow. It's just doing stats. So the next interesting thing is, as you introduce understanding or real world models to these things, say, well, you can't do this because can't build an airplane like that because it wouldn't fly. So we'll see pieces come in from that, but that's of course quite hard work to explain how something works.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it is related to the telecommunications business as much as anything else, because there's a tremendous amount of optimization problems, that exist when you run these types of networks and interact with people. And if you could actually have an AI layer that sits on top of that and is capable of understanding things as well as a human could, and act as a gatekeeping function for how people dynamically join, the potential for building next generation networks is pretty remarkable, because it can dynamically turn every device into an antenna and share bandwidth and do traffic forming. I mean, that was kind of the dream of software-defined networking and intent-driven networking, but we never really figured out a good control logic for it. And it seems like these AIs could potentially be the control logic that was always dreamed of.
Charles, I've got a question for you. You shared some thoughts on the recent controversy around Ledger. Data integrity and security is incredibly important to us all at World Mobile, and I wondered if you had any tips on staying secure in light of the recent discoveries about Ledger. Be interesting to know.
Sorry, I lost the last 5 seconds. My mic cut out. Can you repeat right after data integrity?
Yeah, no, of course. I was just asking what your tips were on staying secure in light of the recent discoveries around Ledger. I know it's something that our community have been very interested in.
Yeah, my big bugbear there was that there was a social contract, which basically said this is the ultimate, not your keys, not your wallet. And the whole thing about Ledger was that when you generate those keys on a ledger, they never leave, ever. In fact, as a protocol developer, we were kind of haggling over what could we export from a ledger and what had to stay, especially with delegation keys and these other things. And they were historically very steadfast about saying there's no way to get private keys off the device and into the hands of another device. And that's the security model. It's a local thing, and then it signs transactions, and the only thing that's going to leave are the signed payloads that come through. So this backup feature, what it's doing is it's effectively saying where there was a wall, there's now a door, but trust us because we have 3 locks on that door, so everything's okay. Well, there's 2 issues there. One is a security issue where if you've made a mistake in the way the code is written, however unlikely, somebody can pick those locks, and then suddenly your keys are now not just on the device, but they're somewhere else and potentially accessible. This is kind of like the LastPass problem, where the vaults got compromised, and they say, oh, well, they're encrypted, don't worry about it. Well, if they ever could break that, you lose everything, and some people, they ran into that problem. The other problem is the coercion problem. That's much bigger and more significant. So the issue is if those shards, however they're stored, shared secret sharing or whatever, are in the possession of regulated known entities or even unregulated entities, but known businesses, they have to live somewhere like the United States or Europe. And so what happens when they get subpoenaed? Do they have to turn those keys now over to unencrypted to like the Department of Justice or the Treasury Department, like the IRS or something like that? And that's the uncomfortable reality when you go from can't to shouldn't. When can't, you physically can't do anything for them. You say, okay, here you go, good luck. When you go to shouldn't, it's like, well, trust us. And that's, I think, the issue with the Ledger situation as they move from can't to shouldn't. They put a door on the wall and said, trust us, these are really good locks. And that's a violation of the social contract that a lot of people signed up for.
100% it's dark. They turned dark, and the question is, were they forced to turn dark, or was this a choice of survival? But they've gone against their initial statement that they brought forth, right, which was have a ledger. It's your keys. They're stored very safely, and they don't go anywhere except from off your ledger unless you put them on or off.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem with this space is it's kind of like Old Testament. There's lots of rules and no mercy. And once you violate them, it's hard to get back to purity. So social contracts matter a lot in the cryptocurrency space, and people are super, super, super protective of them and very vigilant of them. So whenever you build a product, you always have to keep that in the back of your mind of what are you allowed to change and what are you not allowed to change, and what's sacred. In terms of tips and security, I still believe that Ledger, for the most part, is a decent product. But the problem is it's a very crowded, competitive space. You have Trezor and Arculus, and you have all these others. And now what's happened is people who are loyal Ledger users are taking a step back and they're reevaluating whether it makes sense to stay with that or go to one of the other dozen or so good options that are inside the space. And there's going to be a great readjusting. If you want to homebrew it, paper wallets are awesome, and they're quite secure because no hacker can get them, assuming that they don't get access to the printer you used for it. And we're actually creating a paper wallet generator with Lace, and my hope is to have that out before the end of the year. And I think it'll be the ultimate paper wallet generator and be multi-chain and have lots of great capabilities. But I mean, one of the easiest ways of securing your keys is, you just write down the keywords and encrypt them with PGP and then just store it in your email. It's super low tech, super primitive. It's really hard to hack that. That's still a very tried and true and tested thing, and it's very unlikely that even if your email gets hacked, that's a problem for you. Assuming that you don't back up your keys in your email, keep those on a YubiKey or something like that. So oftentimes the best solution is the simplest solution, especially wherever your skeleton key forms. Security almost always is connected to who has access and what is the skeleton key. Otherwise, what is the thing that gives you access to everything? So is that a password manager? Is that your email account? Is that a piece of hardware? What is it? That's the thing that's your backbone, and all your security flows from there. That's why the LastPass hack was so significant, because that was the skeleton key for millions of people. And whenever that gets compromised, then suddenly millions of people are not only just compromised in one dimension, like, oh crap, I now have access to my Facebook page. Potentially every dimension was compromised, from their credit cards to, all their proprietary information, to the access control for their organization, their companies. So that was the single biggest treasure trove of problems for people. So, the first step in security is get a very good skeleton key and really harden that backbone. And then whatever that is, it usually gives you the ability to store encrypted data, and it's very trivial to store keywords at that point in that structure. The only downside is you lose the convenience of a device like Ledger, where, if you need to sign something, you just boot it up, you click a few things, and boom, it's done. Pairing a hardware wallet with like a hot wallet, like a browser wallet, is a really nice user experience, and it's a shame if we have to migrate from that.
Some great points there, Charles. We've touched upon Voltaire, Marlowe, sidechains, LLMs, GPT, prompt engineering, Midjourney, Ledger. We've got a packed agenda today, but before we move on to that, one last question, and something I'm sure many of the community would be interested in. Tell us about the first time that you met Micky, and how inspired you were after hearing him talk about World Mobile.
So Micky, it's been a while, so you'll have to fill it in if I've missed something. But I think you first met John O'Connor, and the first time we met in person was at the Cardano Summit in Miami in 2019.
Yeah, actually, I don't like to correct you, but it was in Edinburgh at Plutus Fest.
Okay.
Where you had a napkin with Plutus code on there that was a smart contract.
That's right. And that was a few months before the Miami conference that we had.
And then it was John O'Connor, and then it was Miami.
Okay. And then I remember you gave me a very, very nice cigar, which was probably one of the best cigars I've ever smoked in my life. And we had a great time in both Scotland and I for some reason thought Scotland was after the Miami summit, but you're right. It was, I think, 4 months beforehand in December, and then we had the Miami event in April of 2019, and that was a really fun conference. Stephen Wolfram came to that, and we had Clearwater Creedence there. We had Steve Miller. It was an all-out party. It was great. But Micky is an incredibly bright guy. He's very gregarious and full of life, and always has a brilliant entourage with him. And I knew that he was one of the few people that could really execute on the connect the unconnected mission. A lot of people say it, and there's certainly been a lot of posers that have come, shall not be named. The reality is that you have to be in it for the long haul, because this is not a journey that's measured by market cap or days. This is a multi-year life mission that is about transforming lives, and you have to be able to build, maintain, and inspire a team over that multi-year agenda. And Micky, you certainly have put together a great team at World Mobile.
Thank you, Charles. I mean, it's been a really good 5 years now, I think, that we've known each other. So I consider you a deep friend, someone I can always call upon to talk about anything, as well as blockchain. And very, very good to meet you. I think that was the first time I said to you, Charles, I want to speak, but my kids are crying on the phone. In order to bank the unbanked, we first need to connect the unconnected. Let's do it together. And then you sent over John to Tanzania to see the university that we'd connected over there. He made his first phone call over the blockchain, and that was it. Love at third sight, I think. And ever since. So thanks to you and the IOHK team for everything you guys do for us. And if Tam is literally sitting behind you, say hi.
No, she's up in London, Ontario. I'm down here in Wheatland, Wyoming.
Good stuff. All right, Mike, let's go.
Right, so moving on, we've got a packed agenda today. We're going to introduce buybacks. That was an update that came out over the past couple of days that I'm sure many people have got some questions on. Moving on swiftly, we'll touch upon the latest on our roadmap status. before moving on to testnet and mainnet updates, air nodes and WMT scan, global app testing. The community beta went live yesterday. I'm sure many of you have participated in that. We'll touch upon the Aerostat, USA, Pakistan and African field tests. And then finally, I'll recap some of the highlights from my trip to Zanzibar before we open the floor to questions for our open AMA. So starting with buybacks, I'm sure many of you noticed the update to WMT scan on Monday. Micky, do you want to touch upon the launch of buybacks and explain that integration with WMT scan, the vision and the approach for the buyback program moving forward?
So yeah, the approach for the buyback plan moving forward is every Monday at a completely random time, the buybacks will be purchased. The buybacks are coming from direct revenue that's being made across the network. There's things that you see on WMT scan, and there's things that you don't see on WMT scan. In terms of Pakistan, Mozambique, Kenya, and USA. And the buybacks is a very exciting moment. It's another point of the sharing economy finding its own feet and starting to function on its own. So we're super excited. We hope the community is super excited as well. And you know, I'm very proud. There's not many tokens or many cryptocurrencies that are bringing money in from the real world that isn't speculation, that is based on demand for internet usage and value-added services. So keep your eyes peeled. Don't expect huge growth because the sharing economy is still growing. It's almost like an AI, but not quite. Of course, James will tell me off for that later. But it's happening. It's starting to form. It's starting to breathe. It's starting to do everything on its own, and we've got to get that perfectly right. And we're going to see that in Pakistan as well, because we don't have boots on the ground in Pakistan. So WMT buybacks, keep your eyes peeled, and it's an exciting moment for all of us.
And then how will Pakistan impact buybacks and the sharing economy moving forward?
More air nodes equal more connection possibilities. More people connected to the network are paying for the network. That gives the Earth nodes more to do when they come live. And there's an update soon with testnet, the private testnet and the public testnet. And it just means more revenue into the system. The demand for internet is absolutely huge. Everybody's beginning to recognize it. In our crypto space, it felt like only Charles recognized it, nobody else in the very beginning. And IOHK said, okay, you know, you're right. In order to get all these things working, a feature phone is really hard to develop on. In order to bank the unbanked, people need to be connected to a service that they can use that's affordable and that's online whenever they need it. So more revenue, more air nodes, more buyback.
Incredible. It's such an exciting time. It's a pivotal moment in the journey of World Mobile and the development of the sharing economy. Moving forward, roadmap status. So in case you missed it, on our last community update, we launched our new dynamic roadmap. And since we launched that dynamic roadmap, there have been a couple of updates in terms of progress. And Antonio, it'd be great to hear from you, just a recap of some of those updates on the public roadmap, including some of the ones that were made a couple of weeks ago ahead of that first ENO call that we had.
Yeah, so we had several updates. We are, as you just mentioned, going into Pakistan, so we are preparing some integrations that are needed there, like integrating with a payment aggregator, the KYC provider, etc. And I should open the roadmap to remember everything so I don't forget what we updated. As you already mentioned as well, we had the buyback program included. As people may have figured out by that update, there are things that we don't show in the roadmap, but they are happening. So not everything it's in the roadmap. Everything that's in the roadmap is happening, but not everything that is happening it is in there. And yeah, it's mainly we have just today updated the multi-country setup. So we are already publicly testing that setup in both Pakistan, other countries, and in Zanzibar, where it seems like we haven't heard back from any issues on that update, which is great. As a software developer, I always anticipate some bugs, and this time it was really, really smooth. And yeah, the one big thing for me and the airnode operators listening is the telecommunications settlement that it's already being private testing, and I leak a bit of the video with an internal demo in the Discord, so they could see some of the progress in a rough manner, because it was a video aimed to be only shared internally, but I thought that it was interesting for them. We have several things that I don't know if I should go into that right now, or there was a point later about what we are finishing up for the private testnet. So this Friday is going to the internal test. Should I go into that already, Mike, or should I wait for later?
Well, before we get onto that, one thing I was really interested in, I saw it appear in the scoping section of the roadmap, is that commercial use of DID extension. So it'd be great if you could give some context on what that is and what the impact of that will be moving forward.
Sure. That's that's one of the most exciting things for the immediate future. So as you may or not may know, right now the customers in the network, they need to have an Android app in order to use the premium services, what we call the commercial services, right? Because that application is the method that we use to assign the DID internally to the customer, and the DID is in the base of everything, and we are even encrypting things with DID-COM, and so DID is at the heart of the whole network. That was the first approach, but now we need to open that to people that cannot or don't want to use an Android app to connect. So the DID extension is a way for us to replicate what the Android app is doing in a web browser, in a laptop, or even in a handset. And what it does is essentially the same than the native application. When you install the extension, you are assigning a DID, and then you have a commercial website that offers the same options than the application in terms of top up the WOX, buy the bundles, and enjoy the bundles by authenticating to our radio servers. So basically, the DID extension is like the native application for web browsers.
Awesome. And not to stop you from continuing there, you were going to touch upon some of the updates to testnet. What are the latest developments with testnet, and what can we expect in the way of updates in the near future?
Yeah, so as I just hinted, the next big iteration is going into our own internal testnet this Friday. And after it's tested internally, it will go to the private testnet and then to the public testnet. So I will just give the bullet points, because I don't want to take too much time on which features are we going to include now into the testnet. So the Aya Cardano passive flow, which is how everything is observed from Aya. The recognition data settlement, which I mentioned already, we leak a video in the Discord. The chain follower, the passive flow leader selection, so the decentralized processing of the cross-chain events from Cardano is also going into the internal testnet, as well as the epoch change and the related actions that need to happen on epoch change on Aya. Also the Aerostat operator NFT with the registration version 2 is aimed to be included this Friday. We are still finalizing that for this Friday, so it could be that it's not in on Friday and it needs to wait until Monday, but it's almost done as well. And the stake injection module. All that is going to our own internal testnet, as I mentioned, and soon after will be into the private testnet.
And talking about private testnet, you had the first DNO monthly call. Antonio, how did that go?
It was great. As I mentioned during the call, I want that call to be more of a dialogue than just a presentation from us. And we got some very smart questions from the community. And I think that we started something that it will be a very fruitful conversation, not only for the EarthNode operators, but also for us, because we will have this.
And
we will have this touch point monthly as well. Yeah,
we have
ahead,
IOHK and Cardano to thank for that, really, right? The way that they speak and handle the processes that SPOs have gone through, and there's Paddy and there's Paul, and they were the ones that recommended this, based on how Cardano and IOHK were dealing with the updates to the SPOs. So, Charles, we take
a lot of inspiration from them. Usually.
Yeah, Charles, you're a big component of community feedback, and you push that.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see how quickly you guys are deploying on testnet. Everything from how you handle identity with the DID standard to what you're doing to basically integrate the different pieces of the network together. These are just a phenomenal beta test to basically get great business and product requirements and inevitably technical requirements for a product that can stand the test of time. So we're really excited to watch the results that come through, and also how you build a community, because there's different sources of operational excellence when you think about a completely distributed, resilient telecommunication backbone. You have the aerostats, you have fixed point infrastructure, you have potentially home infrastructure that people have, there's potentially government infrastructure, there's licensed and unlicensed spectrum. So there's all these different things, and that's on the hardware side. Then you have on the software side, like stateful operators that are doing things, and then perhaps one wants to introduce jurisdictional specific considerations to the regulation of the traffic flow. And so all of these things are really going to push the limits of what's possible in blockchain architecture. In fact, I think you're the first network we've come across that actually, I think, needs Minotaur. Minotaur is a technology we invented in the lab last year, and it's a multi-resource consensus protocol. And there, it allows you to actually run multiple consensus protocols together at the same time on the same ledger. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a proof of work fan, or I'm a proof of stake fan, or I'm a proof of history fan, or a proof of availability, or whatever, the proof of XYZ. Well, when you talk about something like a telecommunications network, you're talking about linking together thousands of different concepts, regulatory structures, ideologies, philosophies, and disparate hardware devices into one system. And to be able to reconcile that into a blockchain system actually requires a multi-resource consensus approach. So that's actually probably on the technology side. It really gets me most excited about the challenges you guys are going to face over the next 12, 24 months is how to solve that for the first time ever in the history of blockchain. But what's really cool is if it's solved in the right way, what will happen is actually World Mobile will probably have the most secure ledger, because it has no point of failure in consensus. You actually have a situation where even if, let's say, there's a flaw in proof of stake, like sometimes gets discovered on Ethereum or Solana, and it results in a network stall or these things, you actually don't have a network stall because you have fallback consensus algorithms that are inside the system that are connected to other decision points. That's really what we're trying to get with cryptocurrency and what the dream of Bitcoin was. And it's kind of cool that it may be the case that a telecommunications project ends up solving the holy grail of the cryptocurrency space in terms of consensus and resilience of consensus. So that's as we watch this and I kind of think about what are the technical needs, that's the thing that really gets me most fired up.
Legendary, man, and with your support, anything's possible. So we appreciate, and also Atala Prism. You've come on leaps and bounds there, and DID.com has been made to be able to plug that straight in and interoperate. So we're super forward. I think it's Tony on your team there that is that's handling that, and he's got a long history in telecoms. So I very much enjoyed the conversations we had with him. So I think one of the main questions, Antonio, people are asking, are we still on track for a mainnet target date of Q3?
We are on track to be mainnet ready, and I think that the team is doing a great effort, working long hours to reach every target. I know that people will say, "Okay, you're too ambitious," but the team is ambitious, so still on target. If that changes, I will tell you, but not so far.
And how far are we through with the coding of the consensus itself?
Yeah, the consensus itself, difficult to estimate, but I would say we are 85 to 90% complete in the code.
So that means we're on target for a mid-June private, end of June private test net, putting you on the spot here, and then the public test to be in July.
For the consensus specifically, we still need to test the interface with Cosmos, the my English is going, IBC interface, I think it was. So you're putting me on the spot. I don't want to promise, but we are aiming for that.
Okay, from what I see, it looks great, and I think the team is doing fantastic. And it does take time to build teams, and with the help of our partners and everybody that we're working with in the space, I think we finally built a fantastic team.
Let me mention that bromance that I have with Torben, just to make you jealous, Micky. He is moving to Spain next week, so that will accelerate things.
The other side of the mountain from you, so you can take nice romantic walks for 40 minutes at a time whilst you're talking about how you stay awake all night to make the blockchain for the unconnected.
Actually, we can walk the dogs up to the middle of the mountain and then have a working session there. Yeah.
I'll buy you one of those espresso machines that you can take with you, that you can have a coffee on the side of the mountain. It makes you perfect espresso every time.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, Mike, what's next on the agenda?
So moving on, WMT scan and Airnode deployment. So we are at 318 Airnodes deployed in Zanzibar. The recent deployment saw us move out of Stone Town and to the tourist hotspots of Nungwe and Paje. And I guess one question is, what's inspired this approach, and what's the strategy behind these new locations? And Andy, it might be good point for you to give some context here.
I'll jump in now, because I think that Charles actually climbed the second ever Airnode, in much to the horror of his security team and everybody else. Charles just got up and started climbing on top of this 5 meter, 6 meter tower right to the top.
That was the fish market. That was the fish market, and I remember that. That was a lot of fun.
It's still there. It's still one of the most active nodes. But how do you feel to hear that we've got 318 of them right now, covering a large proportion of Stone Town and
oh my god,
the perimeters?
You put up 318 of those towers. Holy shit, that is crazy. That's not a small tower.
There's 16,000 users, maybe a bit more, that are unaccounted for right now. There's a ton of B2B users that aren't shown on WMT scan. And the beauty of the B2B users is, one, they haven't had reliable internet forever, at the cost that we can bring it for them to either to trade online, to deal with e-commerce and orders. But number two, they double up as B2C nodes as well. So the person holding the B2B node, who's paying for that, prepaying for it, is also earning money from people around there that have the World Mobile application and automatically join the network and consume it when they're near it. So it's definitely exciting to see us grow from this stage. And of course, we could have put down 2,000, 3,000 nodes, right? And we could have spent $5 million, and we could have got a huge proportion of the island online. But that wasn't the idea of a sharing economy. That's not the idea of World Mobile. If we do that, we're going to be looking to raise again for each country that we roll out into. The idea for us was to build an economic model that incentivizes people to put up infrastructure where there wasn't any, or where the people were underserved or overcharged. So Stone Town was a perfect place beyond our initial proof of concepts in different places around the world, Pakistan and Tanzania. Was the place that we really wanted to get the sharing economy working right, so that people within minutes or tens of minutes could turn up to our office and say, shit, my node is down, or it's broken, or I've reset something, or I unplugged it last night and it's not reconnecting back to the network, or how do I get users or for activators to activate certain nodes. The Zanzibar is like the Charlie Chaplin movie that I think took him a ridiculous time, 5 years to film one scene until he got it perfect. And it's been very tempting to just say, okay, let's just go and get more customers on the network. Let's just bring more revenue into the network. But if we don't do it the right way, and Charles, you've taken this approach with everything you build, I think. But if you don't do it the right way, you're going to find yourself unstuck at some point. You're going to grow fast, and then the sharing economy isn't going to work. The numbers, the economics are not going to work. The education isn't going to happen. So now we feel that it's happening, and that's why we've given birth to a baby in Pakistan, but we've kind of given it to somebody else, to an aunt and uncle to look after. And we're going to see how that grows based on this model. And we're going to take this model and now spread it across the rest of Zanzibar. Mike, maybe you've got more to tell because you've been on the ground. You've tested the other networks out there. You know the world mobile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the B2B point in particular, I mean, for me, meeting our B2B customers was probably my most inspiring activity while I was out there. And, every business owner that I spoke to had seen demonstrable business growth since installing Well Mobile. And the surprise for me, I was asking them, okay, well, what were you using before? And actually, prior to Well Mobile, they didn't have anything in terms of a focused business connection. They were just using that unreliable mobile coverage. And, I think I said to you that the one kind of core takeout I had from the whole trip was that, mobile coverage didn't necessarily equate to connectivity. There were multiple times that I had, 4 bars of mobile signal using the local SIM, but didn't have a reliable or stable connection. And, the community saw that as well in the speed test that I did. So, the B2B customers in particular were incredibly inspiring to speak to. And, the night and day difference between, our offering and what's there from a mobile network offering is significant.
Yeah, and getting that sharing economy figured out is so incredibly important. If you think about Bitcoin, when it started, it was January 3rd, 2009. And then within just 10 years, you had a situation that built bespoke hardware and gargantuan data centers from the country of Georgia to Mongolia to places like Paraguay and on hydroelectric power. And that's all 100% decentralized in self-adoption because the incentive model was correct. So that once you crack the incentive model, then it's less about, well, what does Micky do with his team, or Charles do with his team, or Bob do with his team, and it's more about just a self-assembling network where you wake up and you end up with millions of nodes that are autonomously interacting with each other, providing basically a blanket connectivity across the entire world, and more importantly, self-upgrading nodes, where usually they're connected to consumer devices, and so every few years people rotate those out for different reasons. So you always have this living organism that has best available technology instead of really ossified 1990s, 2000s Cisco stuff that's just impossible to get rid of.
Agree. And the beautiful thing about the World Mobile Network is you can pick up a Cisco device. You can pick up multiple different devices. The way that we've built the network, you just plug and go, right? It's quite wonderful. We've got radios that are being built in the University of San Diego right now, antennas, not radios. And we've got radios that have hundreds of channels on them that can range from $400,000, $500,000, maybe even $1 million builds with this most gigantic multi-user massive MIMO, right? And we've also got radios that are $300, and they do their job. So one thing about the World Mobile Network is anyone can bring their own radio depending on the spectrum that we've got. Some places we operate licensed spectrum, some places we operate unlicensed spectrum. And Zanzibar is a bit different because it's kind of a Wi-Fi model, and there is some unlicensed spectrum, LTE-U, that we're using that connects to your devices. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in Zanzibar. Soon it will be the time that we can leave Zanzibar and we can let it grow on its own. We're still somewhere away from that. We're still perfecting it. You know, my ambitions and my estimations are really what I want to happen. But in reality, if I let the baby go too quick without making sure that it knows how to walk properly and have, you know, a safe environment and function without me, then I can't leave. So that's what we're doing. Zanzibar, Pakistan will be testament to that. And then I think soon after will be Operation Air Node in USA in the next 3 months.
So Airnode deployment in Zanzibar, incredibly exciting. But moving out of Zanzibar and thinking about global outlook, the global app, what's the latest on global app development?
Antonio, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I was putting my baby to sleep while I listened to you guys. Sorry for that. Yeah, what's the latest in the global app development? We are opening in staggered phases. We are going to release things to the beta program, so people will be able to test all the parts. We are launching it with the scan to earn. We are launching it with a marketplace, with a Cardano wallet embedded into the application, where you can.
What can you do with that Cardano wallet, Antonio?
What you can do with Cardano wallet, so you can send and receive the most special token, WMT. Also, another token that may be interesting, ADA, and any other native token from Cardano, you can stake into a stake pool. You will eventually be able to stake WMT as well with your Aerostat operator of choice when mainnet comes. You will be able to use those crypto tokens to convert to WOX and then use it in the marketplace. You will have a fiat on RAM, so you can purchase crypto with it. Everything depending on regulation and depending on the country that you're in. But yeah, you will be able to do all those things. Am I forgetting anything, Micky?
There's things that are not on there yet, like being able to reserve your number for the network, a standard number, multiple different countries, vanity numbers, you know, your company name in a number.
Come on, don't leak that already.
And there's and the VPN, of course, that's to come. But in this first iteration, they won't be included. But soon after, they will get added. And they're, of course, apps that consumers will use as well on the mobile network, on the USA mobile network, on the Pakistan network, on the Tanzania network, the Nigeria network, Kenya network, Mozambique network, all the different networks.
One of the nice. Sorry, go ahead, Micky.
No, go ahead. Before I leave.
Yeah, I was saying that one of the nice things of releasing the app finally is that then it's all about iteration. So every little feature can come incrementally, and we don't need to wait such a long time to have another delivery. So once the application is delivered, then every feature will come incrementally in short iterations.
The biz dev team are also working really hard to bring in partners for value-added services, whether that's cable television, sports, regional television, content, entertainment, and the Earth nodes will be functioning. There's an update to come later on this, but the Earth nodes, will be functioning as the CDN, as the storage, as the distribution network. So very, very exciting moments when we get the global app and Scan to Earn. We're looking for everybody's support to connect the unconnected, and this is like a huge contribution you can make. You have no idea how expensive the maps are for us to buy and to acquire, and they're not live. They're 6 months old or 4 months old, and they're not accurate. And then the maps that the mobile network operators report, they're also not often up to date and can be inaccurate. So what we've built with Scan to Earn is a mapping system that runs on your telephone and then scans the area that you're in to make sure the decibels on the radios are good. If there is cell signal, if there is no cell signal, the depth of the cell signal, and then allows us as a really good business intelligence to understand where Operation Air Node will go. Because remember, the first Operation Air Node will be, let's say, 1,000 nodes in the United States of America. The second one will be 20,000, and the third one can be 1 million nodes in the United States of America. And these nodes are going to be making some good revenue from our calculations. So there's going to be a lot of users, and they're all going to be using this mobile application. It's going to be a huge source of revenue for the entire ecosystem.
Just a quick question on value-added services. This was something that I'd noticed a couple of people mention on Telegram. But are we developing some of those value-added services in-house? You touched upon the business development team and their work in securing partners, but what's happening from an in-house perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I just said about the VPN. This is a value-added services. People need a VPN. What's better than a VPN running across all the different Earth nodes and utilizing the security and the technology that we've built with full immutability and transparency? So that's one value-added services. And then we're also speaking to OTT providers again for content. Content is huge. It brings big revenue into the network. And yeah, there are things, blockchain-based loans that are being developed for the continent, for Africa, and for Asia. So I can't really speak too much more, Mike, because otherwise I'll leak information. You need to move on.
No, just one last segue. Actually, you touched upon obviously the revenue generation in Zanzibar and that distribution moving forward. What's the latest with the top 10 nodes by revenue on WMT scanner, and what have we learnt so far as well? Because for those who are joining new to the space, who may not have tuned in for a while and missed a couple of our recent updates, WMTscan.com is now showing the top 10 air nodes by revenue. So you can actually see the money that Airnode hosts are earning through hosting those air nodes in Zanzibar. But what have we learned so far, Micky, and what's to come?
Interestingly, a majority of those nodes are also B2B nodes. So it's working as a double economy. So that's one of the things I think that we didn't expect to happen, that B2B offices, buildings, areas, shops, a lot of people who had the World Mobile application or connected to the World Mobile network via a certificate can automatically join. So that's like a very big surprise for us. We're going to show all of the nodes pretty soon, but we're still getting the sharing economy right. We're still getting what you see on WMT scan. There's more. It's just we'll add it as the time is right and as we're very sure that everything is correct.
Exciting. And before we move on from the global app, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's participated so far in the first stage of that community beta. For those who haven't participated, the way that we've executed that, we've actually used a third-party platform called Maze, and what that allows us to do, it's allowed our UX team to gather valuable feedback at scale before we actually move to the next phase, which will obviously introduce a lot of variables around the devices that we distribute the app to, and also the location. And that will be key because, from an operational perspective, depending on regulations, certain features may not be present, certain elements may not display in the same way on different devices. So that next stage of the beta will initially start by onboarding smaller groups to bug squash before we roll out to bigger audiences. But yeah, please do, if you've not participated yet, there was an email sent yesterday. Please do that before June the 6th. If you do participate and send feedback, you will be a priority for the next phase. And for those people that haven't yet signed up, you can do that on beta.worldmobile.io. We will send a follow-up blast of emails later this week, just to catch people that may have missed that initial window. And moving on, what can we say about the Aerostat? That's a question that is always top of mind within the community. What's the latest with the Aerostat, Gregory?
Well, we're making solid progress. We passed a very significant milestone in that the government entities within Tanzania that we've been waiting on for what seems like quite a long time have now said that we're going to be allowed to operate the Aerostat. We're waiting for that to translate into the aviation authority giving us an actual documentary permission to get started. But we're making solid progress with the Aerostat, not only in Zanzibar, but elsewhere as well. I've actually just spent the last 2 days meeting with one of our Aerostat suppliers to make sure that we're lined up for growth in our Aerostat activities. It may seem early, given that we haven't yet launched the Aerostat in Zanzibar, but we need to be ready when we can, because once we can, as I briefly mentioned in our last update, there are several places that are waiting for the Aerostat to launch so that they can then have their own demonstrations as well.
We have more countries or companies that have reached out to us and are waiting for a trial than we do Aerostats.
Absolutely. And so we're going to need multiple Aerostats in the near term, so we're working on that. And, I'm fully expecting that we will be through the paperwork nightmare. I'm going to avoid using that word, but imminently. How about that?
The biggest takeaway there is that we've had confirmation of no objection
Correct.
from the military.
Yeah.
So now it's back in the TCAA's hands, and we're waiting for them to give us approval to fly. But they were waiting for the military. Now that this moved, we move to the next stage. We don't want to promise anything. It could be any moment. It could be longer. But we're keeping you. You're living the journey with us, and just as frustrated as we are, you are, and I think just as happy as we will be when it goes up, you will be as well.
And, I have to say that I have grey hair, but if I'd had dark hair when I started this process, I would definitely have grey hair by now. It's been much more challenging than we anticipated, but we have learned so much from this process that it's going to get easier and easier as we go through it in different jurisdictions.
Yeah, and we have 3 or 4 other African countries that have requested us to come in, and we believe that process will be much faster. But we believe in Zanzibar. We've got our equipment there, and we're waiting for the go-ahead. Of course, there is a cut-off limit. That's not to say that if we go and launch in a different country, we won't come back to Zanzibar. But of course, our preference is Zanzibar after this long struggle. It's like fasting, right? Charles knows about that. You go 5 days, 6 days without eating. You want to be sure that the other side you got some really good nutritious food, and then the next day a burger, right? So that's the situation with Zanzibar and the Aerostat.
And in terms of Aerostats, we recently completed a launch in the USA, which was a successful demonstration of our full hybrid connectivity solution. That the film showcasing the journey of the air nodes over from Zanzibar to New Hampshire went out on YouTube just after our last community update. But what's the latest in terms of progress in the USA, and what's next on the agenda ahead of the launch of Operation Airnode? And I'll pass that to Micky.
Or Micky or James, right?
I'll give it to James. There we go.
Okay, so what are we doing in the USA? We are, I guess it's Frequency Fiber and Friends. So what we're doing at the moment is finding an appropriate set of locations that our community will then be able to put up antennas in, and working out all of the necessary parameters for those so that people will be able to put up equipment coverage that will be money-making coverage in the wrong place. So that spending lots of times with maps, working out what the best to use, and working out how to offer that data to that you can participate and look. There is obviously a tool is effectively a scanner that will allow you to go and check out a location. So we can give you a rough location and say this area would additional coverage, and there is revenue there. Take this runs on Android, go drive around it, check it out thoroughly. Obviously, it may be that you actually own a building in that area, or you own some of the property or whatever, in which it's very good for both the host or the antenna and so that's what we're doing, sort of mapping locations.
James is just making an example of how bad the USA mobile networks are with these extremely choppy line. I don't think it's just me. Mike, are you hearing James like a helicopter?
Yeah, getting the same thing and a few other messages.
But we appreciate you highlighting the inefficiencies in the USA mobile networks.
That's annoying. Well, I am in a coverage.
What we're doing is what we're really doing is the scan to earn, right? The first version of it, and we're running around with scan to earn right now. Have teams on the ground in areas that we know are money making areas. On the business development side, we're speaking to multiple different mobile network operators. They could be in the top 3. And we're working out the deals where they will be able to come and roam onto our network and pay our operators, our air-node operators, the money that is required. Just because we're a DY and nobody else has done it properly yet, it's a very immature conversation with them. It was 6 months ago. But as we've moved further and we've showed them our capabilities, what we can do, and they understand that we've run mobile network operators and MVNOs in the past, and we really know what we're doing, the conversations are moving super fast. And there's a lot of opportunities in the United States of America to put up a node and make money. And that's, of course, what we're building. Pakistan, I saw a load of hype about this online, and people saying, oh no, World Mobile is going to suffer because cryptocurrencies got been banned in Pakistan. If you understood the white papers and you've read everything, in this initial startup state, we don't at all interact with WMT on the first connectivity layer. Of course, every transaction that happens, every megabyte, kilobyte that flows through the network has some WMT cost associated to it. That comes back into the network, but we've made sure for regulation purposes we didn't give out tokens or emit tokens or rewards or for people to be able to win really quickly. And number one, and number two, regulators don't like that. So Pakistan, we were very sensible about our decisions in the beginning, and nothing's affected there.
And I hear that we may have a Pakistan website live in the near future.
Yes, definitely. But it's probably going to be our partners that put that out, because they're the ones that are running, building, and chosen to take on this shared economy and distribute it through Pakistan. So it may come under the World Mobile brand, or it may come under a brand powered by World Mobile. But we will see.
Exciting. And what are the biggest challenges for deployment in Pakistan at the moment?
Zero challenges. Multi-country support is now working. Antonio mentioned earlier on, the team moved over 16,000 active users live, and made stuff happen overnight without affecting the network at all. Now any country can be plugged into the network seamlessly. Our previous setup wasn't really built in the way that it could be built, so we adjusted it and made it better and stronger and more robust after the things that we learned. And again, keep your eyes open.
Exciting.
No challenges so far. Letting go of the baby and not having control of deployment. It was a challenge for me in Zanzibar. So not being able to have anything or any team on the ground that I can talk to and ring up and nag, as Andy knows really well, for country operations is definitely a challenge for me personally, but that's what's needed.
From a marketing perspective, I've already met some of the team out there and really looking forward to working with them to tell the story of our expansion in Pakistan. I think for me, seeing the images of the guys installing the air nodes in Lahore was a really pivotal moment and really exciting to see World Mobile air nodes in a new location. But speaking of locations, I recently traveled to Zanzibar, communicated numerous updates in our World Mobile official Telegram group. I thought it'd be quite useful just to kind of recap kind of why I went there, what the objectives were, what the outcome will be, and just some of the findings and observations that I had. So, yeah, I mean, it was a central marketing visit to Zanzibar just to get a better understanding of what was happening with the local market teams, and effectively I was there to try and understand the consumer, so really understand the cultural nuances of Zanzibaris, and I undertook quite a bit of primary research while I was out there, so lots of interviews, lots of focus groups with the view of segmenting and understanding our audience to better position our products for them. I assessed the market context, so I actually went out and tested mobile networks in Zanzibar, went through the process of signing up and looking at the different prices and seeing just how much cheaper World Mobile was, and when looking at data, which is of course the most important thing when choosing a mobile network operator. And then of course I really wanted to get out there and use World Mobile. I mean, I'm sure everybody in the community would love to understand what it's actually like to use an air node. And yeah, I went out around Stone Town. We actually have an air node installed in the office, so that was my kind of first port of call to test. But went out around Stone Town, went down to the old fort, around the market, went to some of the places that we've been telling stories about on our social media, and used the network, and it was a really great experience. And again, as you saw with the video footage, I mean, I couldn't have planned it any better than it was executed, but you saw that, the Zantel SIM card, which is the number one network out there, it's really struggling to deliver speeds anywhere close to what was being achieved on the air nodes. And what was great as well was that the mesh network was working seamlessly. I was able to wander around Stone Town. There was no need for me to prompt a connection. It was just moving from air node to air node, and really, really great experience. And then the final thing was just observing the existing process. So we've got these teams of activators out there on the ground, and it might seem like a strange way to approach things, but when you understand the context of how people choose mobile networks and how they stay connected, this isn't a market where people have a mobile contract for 2 years and they sign up for the latest device. Zanzibaris, they use what are called wakalas, so they're almost like agents that help people connect. They give them advice on which service to use, and they actually do it for them physically. So Zanzibaris are very keen to have someone help them get online. So our activators, they're actually quite well known around Stone Town. And what was fascinating to observe was that, as they walked around with the World Mobile logo on their shirts, they were often getting flagged down by people who, are aware of the brand, and they wanted their help to get connected, basically, and for them to help install the app and show them how to use it. So that was another really interesting takeout. But yeah, as I say, the main thing for me was that out there, coverage doesn't necessarily equate to connectivity and a good connection. The issues I had with, having 4 bars of signal, but under a megabit of speed in most instances. I couldn't even take WhatsApp calls, which are, very low bandwidth. My calls were dropping when using the mobile networks, but defaulting over to World Mobile, I was able to alleviate those issues. And in terms of next steps, kind of what's going to happen after undertaking that project on the ground, we're building a strategic marketing plan focused on supporting user acquisition and further growth. So, and that will be across both our B2C offering and also the B2B offering as well, which, as I touched upon earlier, is something that I found, very exciting to witness, and also very inspiring to hear, just how impactful it was on helping empower and develop the economy out there. So moving on, keen to open the floor to questions. So, Zach, if we want to start bringing up speakers, we've still got Charles with us, and I'm sure many of you have got questions for Mr. Hoskinson, as well as the World Mobile team. So it would be great if you could request to speak if you have got a question, and we'll bring you up right away.
I'm going to start the first question, actually. I'll take that liberty. Charles, congratulations on the medical center and the clinic. How does it feel, man?
Well, yeah, 18 months that we put into it, and it's just absolutely extraordinary to finally see it realized, because we didn't just start and say we're going to build a healthcare clinic. I wanted to completely reconstruct primary care from the ground up, and I wanted to combine lifestyle medicine and functional medicine with traditional allopathic care, and then put a very strong emphasis on artificial intelligence into the entire care of the patient. And so everything from using AI to get transcripts when you go and talk to a doctor, to have those summarized and work with the physician to come up with a differential diagnosis and care plan, to then automate all of the things like the ICD encoding and summaries to the patient, to pre-approvals, all the way to adding a genomic medicine component where you actually sequence the genome of the patient and add it into the medical record system, and then be able to do real-time continuous processing on that. So as new things are discovered about genetics, you can actually get precision medicine. And so this required us to do a lot of stuff and create a lot of partners. And we went and built our own pharmacy, a compound pharmacy, our own lab, our own image center, hyperbaric center. So first phase is complete, 10,000 square feet. The primary care practice is open, 3,000 patients already. We'll probably grow to about 10,000 patients in Gillette, Wyoming by the end of the year. And we'll start turning on all the other product lines. And then at some point, we'll be able to get all the AI enhancements in place to complement the functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, and precision medicine derived from genetics. So really incredible to watch all that come together. And it's been insanely difficult, because you think telco is bad. Medicine is probably the most bureaucratic, ossified, least technical fields around.
Big kudos, man. You said what you were going to do, and you've smashed it. And of course, remember who's going to be the internet provider there, please.
Oh, 100%. You know, whenever we can put up a tower. In fact, I have 190 acres just down the street that we were trying to get a damn microwave tower hooked up on, because it has no internet. It'd be nice to get World Mobile there.
Well, we've got an Aerostat that can. We are close to acquiring an Aerostat that can fly at 2,000 feet in any condition, at any height. So that's perfect for Wyoming. But okay, looking forward to it. I'll open the floor to Mav, I think. He's the next person.
All right, am I coming through?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. All right. Well, it's great. The last AMA I tried to get in as the last speaker, and it had some sort of technical difficulties, and you guys got a Bible off to some guy. So that worked out, but it's really good to be up here. I appreciate it. So my question is I have a really excited community, about, 17,000 students or so that we've been setting up Telenet clubs with. Basically, we're setting up ASB clubs where they set up their own stake pools, and they're getting ready to set up their own telecommunications network using World Mobile. And they're constantly asking, when are we going to be able to roll out something to test? The students are really excited, so I was going to fire that off.
Where is that? Which state?
Washington State. I would say the center of the state, about 200 miles from the Seattle metropolitan area.
Okay, so there's a member of our team, USA team, his name is Will. Reached out to Mike or myself on Twitter, wherever you want to, wherever you can. And then I will connect you to Will, and then Will will set up a call. And pretty much straight away.
All right, excellent. Yeah, we have community members that are all partnering with the schools. We have a heat map set up. The schools, I found, are the best place to start looking into this because they already know, because of what happened with COVID, where the areas are where both telecommunications and internet are lacking, because we had lockdowns that were pretty heavy here in Washington State. And so we know where the air nodes are needed, and they're really keen on getting things set up in about 7 different school districts here. And this is kind of our pilot area where we would like to set up, and we have some people over in New York, down in Alabama, Mississippi, Oregon, who are all interested in setting up their own chapters and kind of getting this ball rolling where students own the telecommunications network too.
Sharing economy, I love it. Okay, let's get moving. I'll put you in touch with Will. It's will.reid@worldmobile.io.
All right, thank you.
REID, so you can listen back. But if you can't remember that, or you just want to contact me, I can forward the connection.
Awesome. All right, we have Action. You're up.
Hey, nice to have Charles up here. But I'm really curious, way more about World Mobile than Charles today, because I hear from Charles all the time. So thanks for being active, buddy. It's really nice to hear from you all the time on social media. But I'm really curious about what you guys are building, and I'm gonna make this really easy. And again, I think the question is gonna help everybody. Great job as far as mapping is concerned, because the network is nothing unless there's active mapping going on. So that's a huge deal. Great job focusing there. I know way more about these networks than I wish I did. Just being in crypto in general has gotten me there. But can you give me that elevator pitch? Let's say extended elevator pitch. And here are the basic questions that I'm trying to understand. Is it really going to be 3G only for now? What are the expansion plans? And can you cover the target audience for both the users and providers? And when it comes to providers, what are they going to be providing exactly?
Okay, it's not 3G. It's fit for purpose wherever you are. Wi-Fi is universally interoperable and compatible on old devices and new devices. But for example, in the UK, we're using 4G. In the USA, our network is primarily 5G. If you talk about what we're coming up with from Aerostat, it can be considered, and probably is, 6G, and for the HAPs. The network, we've built networks before. What is the main question? Sorry.
So when it comes to who you guys are targeting, as far as both the users and providers, like node operators, for example, what is it that would be required for someone to run or bring up your network in their area, and who is going to be your primary target? I mean, I know that it's going to be people that don't have access to good quality connectivity, but a little bit more into that.
So people who are hosts in areas that we've identified that could be profitable or will be profitable by our calculations are the first people that we're targeting. We're getting those data sets through mapping right now. In terms of customers, World Mobile is pretty unique in the sense that it's built to work for wholesale traffic too. So the first goal that we've got is to not have to acquire a single World Mobile user on the network, but for nodes to be able to take passive people passing by the network, for us to have positioned them correctly with our algorithms, and for us to capture that traffic so that mobile network operators from around the world are now paying air nodes every month for the traffic passed through there. We're targeting, for sure, the unconnected with our Aerostats and our long-range antennas. And there's a lot of opportunity there in the United States of America alone, but Africa is wild for that opportunity. And then we're also targeting the Swiss cheese, the gaps in connectivity in major cities, in towns, at venues, sports venues, all types of things, anything that will generate revenue for the network through connectivity. So we're not really going out to try and bring on our game isn't to go out to try and bring on all the users via World Money so that we can bring in partners, bring on people who will bring on people, just like Mav, who just spoke to us now, who's got 17,000 students and has built his own community. That's how the sharing economy is going to grow. That's how it's going to be the explosive growth that I've always talked about.
So you're essentially going to be load balancing by setting out, locations saying, hey, this is a place where we need them. And if those locations don't exist, you don't want people just booting things up just to try to take away from the network like we see so many other people doing. Is that correct?
James can talk more about this. We've got algorithms to make sure that nodes can't just come in an area and then become saturated. So there's multiple different things that we're doing.
Yeah, there's a reduction in incentives as you try and load up an area, with too many nodes. Now, when I say reduction, it's a cliff, right? There's no incentive for putting something that is already covered. Now, we can't necessarily absolutely stop people doing that, but it makes little financial sense. You would be better to put your coverage node somewhere where it's needed. So that's part of the mapping system.
But part of the mapping system also takes into account that year on year in the United States of America, you've got 40% increase of data consumption. So where one node was fine in an area or 5 nodes were fine in an area before in one hex, all of a sudden you do need 6 or 7 in order to take the load.
Right. There's a constant increase in densification of networks. And so what was a completely filled hex this year in 3 years' time might be rather empty.
So as someone who's onboarded thousands of people onto other networks, thank you, because that is the most honest way of going about it instead of selling up. That just does not work long term. That's really cool to hear. I'm going to check out more about what you guys are doing because it's really, really cool to see somebody being upfront with what the needs are as opposed to trying to get all that marketing money in by just getting people to go crazy. I'm going to be a millionaire just by, dropping these things in.
No, you need to place them somewhere where there is a need for them, right? And it's easy to find lots of need. But as you say, we can just say, just put it up here where we know there is no need. And that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and you can't just emit a load of tokens for people having infrastructure powered on. That infrastructure has got to be used in order for people to get rewards.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a real network. Networks get built and have longevity. If you license spectrum, you license spectrum for a decade. So we're wanting people to say, right, I'm going to put up some coverage here, and this coverage is going to be something that I could hand down to the next generation. This is a big commitment to. I shouldn't overstate that. You can do a couple of years, but it's a commitment to putting up a network that's useful to lots of people for a period of time, not just put it up for a week and make some tokens and then run away. That's not our business.
The return on that commitment is financial incentive, right? And because more consumption is used year on year, more people have more phones, more devices, and networks, they just find it hard. Centralized networks find it hard to keep up with that many trucks, with that many people. So the people are much stronger.
Well, you think in America, hundreds of billions a year is put into the capital infrastructure of mobile in America, and yet something like 30% of the landmass is uncovered. So there's no way it's going to get done. And most networks at the moment are putting their money into densification. So downtown densification. So, and even then, as we discussed earlier, I have a black spot in my home and in my road. And I'm in San Diego. I'm not in the wilderness at all. So it's very difficult to cover people properly without a community approach.
We're neighbors. I'm in San Diego too, and I totally get what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you're dead on.
It's a mess, right? The beach is uncovered, right? We're a beach community. Who decided to put all the antennas on the highway? Sorry.
All right, thanks.
It sounds like people are prioritizing leaving San Diego.
Nice to meet you, Action.
Likewise, guys. If you don't mind me just asking about hardware, is the hardware that is going to be implemented basically something that will come from your company, or is it going to be third party? Like, how is that going to look?
Both. If you want to buy an antenna and radio that's going to travel huge distances because you've got a rooftop or you're overlooking LA or wherever it may be, that's going to be manufactured, produced in our IP because we have some very cool things. James could explain much more. They are cool things to me, though. But actually, third party is where we're going now. Supply chain, we've been on for the last 6 months. All the different vendors we've been testing in all the different countries that we need testing, where we've got unlicensed spectrum, where we've only got Wi-Fi, where we've got licensed spectrum. So it's a mixture of stuff.
That's right. So there are about 10 well-known vendors of equipment for the radio access layer, and I have 6 or 7 of them here on my roof, or at least in my garage, planning to put them on my roof. If you live in San Diego, you know it's been raining for the last 6 months, so haven't spent a lot of roof time. And so that gives us a wide range of equipment with various different advantages. And then, of course, we had to develop our own antenna technology for the Aerostat, because it has to be super light and super long range. And it turns out that those are pretty good for terrestrial mounting as well, because they go a long range and they're lightweight, so relatively easy to mount. So that's what we have at the moment.
We've also got our own version that Antonio kicks me every day that is almost complete for open WRT, and
yes,
have agnostic. But when you're building a network, initially you want to make sure that if you're selling premium quality, premium costs to premium mobile network operators locally and internationally, that you've got the most premium network. So they'll be recommended and prioritized air nodes in the startup stage, and then as we're in the steady state and the network is making money and serving all users, wholesale and world mobile customers, then we'll allow other pieces of infrastructure onto the network as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Cheers.
So I got to get going in about 15 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Always, Charles. So I have questions for you.
We've got 6 people in the queue. And we just brought up.
Who did you smoke the cigar with, Charles?
Oh, I smoked the cigar that Micky gave me in 2019 alone. That was a nice cigar on the deck.
Special. I feel special for that. Have you still got the mouth organ?
The what?
The mouth organ that I brought up to the ranch.
Oh, yes.
Keeping it in your top pocket.
All right, we've got It's Not What You Know up here. Go ahead and ask your question.
You're on mute.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me now?
Hear you.
Awesome. So this is a question for Charles, because I think the team does try to stay away from token price related conversations. Charles, how do you feel about a meme coin like SNEC having a higher market cap than World Mobile Token, which is arguably the best utility token on Cardano?
Ooh.
Ouch. You're a clever guy. I mean, the markets go up and down, and I mean, if we're going to talk about that in the macro sense, I mean, look at the performance of Dogecoin relative to projects like Ergo or other things that have tremendous performance, and that's why whenever you look at this, you have to widen the aperture, and you have to say, what will be the sustainability of this 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What's the reason for consumption? What's the transaction volume? Why do people hold? And if it's just a speculative surge, you can have a localized pet rock effect, and people make certainly a lot of money and lose a lot of money on that. But ultimately, use and utility is what is the king of things long term. And every industry runs into this. And from the 1990s web boom to what we're seeing with AI right now, where the vast majority of AI ventures are overvalued and only a few are going to end up winning, to meme coins that come and go. And I've been in the space for almost 10 years now, and actually longer than 10 years. And I've noticed, thousands of things come and go. There was a time that EOS was above Cardano and Tezos was above Cardano. And, you'd say, okay, great. it has no bearing on the mission, the philosophy, the roadmap, the progress that you make, and you just put your nose to the grindstone and chip away at it month by month. Focus on the community, focus on the utility, and these things completely self-resolve. That's what I always say whenever you see these anomalies in the market.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles.
I mean, honestly, the more prescient question to ask me is like, why is SNEC higher than Hosky? It's hard not to take that personally.
We love Hosky. Hosky's on the line.
Hello, am I the speaker?
All right. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, great. Charles, obviously very nice to see you again. Really excited to hear that you're doing something with biomedical sciences. My suggestion would be, so my background is in computational biology before I got into Bitcoin in the early days. Genetics is great, but my suggestion would be to look at some of the other layers like the epigenetic, proteomic, transcriptomic, and metabolomic layers. I think that's where most of the action is happening in the biological level.
Yeah, and that's what we are doing. I mean, the epigenetic side is kind of like the operating system, and the only point is that there are things you can look at, in the microbiome, the proteome, and other things that are really good indicators of health and really good indicators of where health can go wrong. And there's a whole emerging field of network medicine where you can start from first principles and kind of work your way up the stack. And then eventually you get to a point where you start getting a much better sense of everything from what dosages you should give the patient to how you should manage a chronic condition, whether it be diabetes or other things. The other thing is there's been a revolution in monitors. It used to be like if you're diabetic, you measure your insulin every so often. Now you have real-time continuous glucose monitors.
Right.
And so suddenly you go from one signal every few hours or a few days or whatever to a continuous signal of everything from an EKG to an insulin level. So combining that is another set of signals, especially when overlaid with like meal diaries and other things that tell you just so much more than you could before. And the problem is that most physicians are not, you're probably aware of this, not well trained in these areas. They're really well trained in allopathic medicine, but unless they happen to have gotten a PhD in the topic and they're an MD PhD, they usually only took like one class in medical school 20 years ago. And so the AI side of it is awesome because that is always up to date, and it's very easy for us to feed the totality of all medical research into like these large language models, and then it can become a recommender system and kind of a co-pilot to help steer a doctor in a particular direction, especially in the management of chronic conditions. And so we're definitely looking in that, and it is an oversimplification to say just do a full genome sequence and then suddenly you have everything. That's just the beginning of the story, by no means the end.
No, I couldn't agree more. I actually worked on kind of like a precursor of a useful proof of work that your team came up with. I call it BitSolve. Was working on that in 2011, but I couldn't solve the whole Turing complete consensus mechanism at that time. But it's really interesting what you're doing. So my question for the World Mobile team, I really like what you're aiming to do. I'm actually from a country where nobody in the country can use their credit cards or debit cards online. So proof of work was a very important revolution on my sense. Proof of stake wasn't that much because we still couldn't use our credit cards or debit cards online to buy anything to participate in the network. Proof of space and time does that right now. My question is, how important is permissionlessness and decentralization for this project?
In the middle and end game, extremely important. Of course.
Okay.
As a telecom company, World Mobile, we need to comply and be regulated for everything that we do. To be a spectrum holder.
I always thought of that as like an Achilles heel. So in 2015, I went to Senegal. So we had a company called Atlas. We were trying to bring cryptocurrency banking services to the underbanked and unbanked in Senegal, Ghana, and one other country I'm missing out on. And our Achilles heel was that we had an executive team in a company that was registered somewhere that was, susceptible to government actions if they didn't feel like their citizens should participate. Do you feel like you're taking enough steps to make sure the people that really need this service can use it without asking for permission or being censored?
The World Mobile brand cannot, because the World Mobile brand is a regulated brand. The private network that was going to span many continents will do whatever the private network wants to do eventually. That's what we're building. But for us, we're a fully regulated entity, and in order to build a brand that can connect to 100 million users before the sharing economy connects to the next 900 million, sure, we've got to be regulated, right? To claim money from mobile network operators for usage of other customers on our network, as we're acting as a neutral host or an MME, then of course we need to be regulated. But there's not that much wrong with the regulation in telecoms. It actually makes a lot of sense. So the things that make us different is what we can see and what we can't see, and how we run our network, and how the things that other mobile network operators could potentially or may do. You only need to look at Google. We'll block a lot of those things, and provably so, and have immutability. So anyone running our network will be as private as they possibly can be, outside of the regulations that need to happen on licensed spectrums and frequencies. And James is an absolute expert there. So World Mobile was first built with the idea of privacy.
Okay, great. I can probably direct my questions to him offline later. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah,
thanks.
sure.
Charles, I know you've probably got to go, so feel free to go. Thanks for showing up. And JJ,
I got about 4 minutes left, so if there's one quick question, I could answer it.
Epic.
All right, Sam, go ahead with your question.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Sam.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity. This is Samuel. Actually, I'm in Hawaii right now. By the way, I want to ask you, Charles, when are you going to come to Hawaii, sir? Anyway,
I used to live in Hawaii. I was born there in Maui. I lived in Makawa.
He's an island boy.
I know, but I haven't seen him here, sir.
It's been a while. I know. I got to get back. I was trying to buy the Piholo Ranch, but Oprah got it.
Anyway, actually, I have a question with for the World Mobile. Hey guys, I'm originally from East Africa. I was born in Tanzania. I grew up in Dar es Salaam, and of course, I've been to Zanzibar a few occasions. I really appreciate what you are doing. And anybody in this discussion right now, if you don't know how Africa is, then I want to assure you that I was born there and I lived there for more than 20 years. It's crazy. So I really appreciate what World Mobile you are doing right now. And
thank you,
my question is, you only focus in Zanzibar. What about Dar es Salaam? I grew up in Temeke region, Mbagala, of course, Kigamboni. Of course, Kigamboni is close to Zanzibar anyway. What about those areas? Because when you go there right now, they will claim that they have 4G network, but as someone in this discussion said, you can even do a WhatsApp call. So my question now...
I'm very aware. Tanzania mainland we've got a lot of support with the TCRA and with what we've been doing with schools in Zanzibar, and we're coming to mainland.
Okay.
It's getting the sharing economy right. We're coming to Uganda. We're coming into Kenya. We're going to be everywhere.
Okay.
It's just getting the sharing economy right. And some people they're not used to rolling out the infrastructure. For example, the biggest surprise for us was that we give a host a node, give instructions, and then at nighttime they turn off electricity.
Yeah.
And everybody around the node couldn't connect.
Yeah.
Right? So that indication is saying, actually, look, you're earning more than the cost of electricity. So getting those kind of understanding, now they're educating each other in the community.
Okay.
So it's about making sure you nurture it correctly, get the sharing economy right, and then we go everywhere. But Tanzania, we have a deep love. Andy, you're on the call. You lived in Dar for a long time, 10 years ago.
Yeah, over a decade I was in Dar, so Karibu to the tourist spaces.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we want to go everywhere, like Micky says, and it shouldn't be a decision of Dar es Salaam or Kigoma. We should have the model right, and we should have the ability to do that. And everybody deserves the connection as much as the guys in Kigamboni or Mbezi Beach.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Maybe I was a little bit because all of my family is in Dar es Salaam, so I've been always curious to know when we'll be able to start using that service, of course, in Dar es Salaam. I really appreciate, and again, I'm saying anybody who hasn't been in Africa to see the way the communication is. And thank you. Someone also mentioned about electricity. Even electricity, it is a problem. There's 3 hours, 4 hours, or maybe the whole night without electricity. So this is the really life.
Not with our solar powered nodes, man. They'll keep going for hours.
So actually, what Mobile is doing right now, of course, Cardano in general, it is a really every day is people's lives. Let me put it that way. Every day is people's life. So
we feel it, man. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Mike just went there and felt it. You know, he felt it behind the computer for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And he's there on the ground. And he feels it. You know, RJ feels it. It's a great job that we enjoy doing. Right? It's very hard, but it's a great job that we enjoy.
Yes.
And then we thank you. Asante sana, brother.
Asante sana. I'll talk to you later, sir. Charles, make sure you come to Hawaii,
Yes.
sir. We need you here.
I want to go hotel.
Charles will jump, but I'll make sure he gets the message.
All
Next
right.
up, we've got Hosky.
Hosky.
Who let the dog out?
Woof, woof, woof. Oh, wait, it's supposed to be who, not woof. Hey, guys.
How are you,
Doing
man?
great. Excited. Listening in, all the things happening. So excited that we decided to buy a second Earth node. Looking forward to what World Mobile is doing. Excited to be able to help run the network. But not only that, also, since we do have 21 stake pools that we support, we want to make sure that once the World Mobile token starts rolling in for the Earth node operators, that those people helping support Cardano's decentralization get a share of it. So we made an announcement earlier that we picked up a second Earth node. We had already got one before, but we're getting a second one. Or actually, we already bought a second one, and we plan to share those rewards with the community.
Congratulations, you're a G. You know that. And we look forward to you helping keep us and everybody decentralized. We're big admirers of what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And
keep the fun going on Twitter.
Always.
Great
Always. That doesn't change. But yeah, looking forward to what you guys have coming up. Excited for what's happening. And Micky, don't forget about that thing that we're supposed to do.
It's big, isn't it?
It's going to be... It'll be fun. And James, I know you're listening down there. You should really be there too.
I'm here. Yeah.
It's gonna take. It's gonna take about 6 hours.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And it's quite slow, but we're gonna be collecting very important.
It's quite a process. No, I'm looking forward to it. Like, you have no idea how excited I am for that. So I will keep bugging you on Twitter until you give me dates.
You can count on me. Next couple of months for
awesome.
sure.
Well, I'll make sure to have my schedule clear.
Okay, everybody goes to hack your Twitter now to see what's going on.
Good luck.
It wasn't on Twitter. It was on Telegram.
Exactly. There you go. Text message.
Legendary stuff. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Next up, we've got Alex M. Alex, are you with us? You're live on World Mobile's community update. You're on mute.
Is that me? I'm on mute, so I'm not now. Thank you guys for having me here.
Great to hear from you.
I have a question that Mike, I know it's been on your desk for a couple of months now, but I understand you're quite a busy guy, and it's hard for you to answer every single question from the community. But I have a business partner that is manufacturing antennas, all sorts of modules for antennas, and basically you name it, they manufacture it, and they're based in UK. Is World Mobile interested in partnerships of sorts?
Definitely. James, this is your domain.
Yeah, you can give me the contact details and tell me what they're doing. I mean,
absolutely.
Without a lot more detail, I don't know how to answer it specifically. But
no problem. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
There are, because you have the quantum antennas, and I believe it's under NDA, as you guys mentioned before. So the details don't need to go to me. I will just connect the manufacturer, basically the CEO of the company, with you. I'll just be the intermediator.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll send you a quick email, I guess, or get your contact from Twitter, if that's okay.
Sure. Great.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to test the nice tools that Antonio is going to give us on the private testnet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hopefully you will enjoy.
We have Cardano Hub. Cardano Hub, you're live on World Mobile's community update.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, so I wanted to ask about what progress is being made with the sidechain, and does the mainnet depend on the progress being made with the sidechain?
It's an Antonio question.
Yeah. Well, mainnet is a sidechain going live, right? So let's maybe clarify what we do. We're building a chain that uses Cardano as the trust source and the financial settlement layer. Our chain is mainly for the telecommunications side of things. So mainnet means having the sidechain interoperating with Cardano mainnet and settling telecommunications data into the blockchain that we're building. That's what we call AYA, the sidechain. So mainnet and the sidechain going live is the same thing for us.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, thank you. That's the only question I had for today, and I'm really looking forward to the mainnet. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we've got Damien. Damien, you're live.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I got a question. It goes a bit on what Action was asking about the use of the network, and that people don't start just buying up the hardware, because back in the days I was also dabbling with helium mining, and the hardware was hard to get. Prices went very high up. What are you gonna do? Because you have contracts with different partners to build the hardware. Are you gonna supply the hardware to the people who want it by yourself, or are you gonna just let the partners do it and don't have anything to say about the prices that go up, and especially in Africa where you don't want to have high prices for hardware?
Initially, we control the supply chain.
Yeah.
Eventually, it will open up to partners that we trust.
All right.
Once we've rolled out 5,000 nodes of a certain device, and we see it running for a year, that becomes a trusted partner.
All right, thank you. Because you know how it goes with capitalists. People see an opportunity to make money, so they're gonna buy up the hardware and sell it for a higher price. So that will be crazy.
No, our incentive is purely to bring revenue into the network.
All right. Thanks for having me. That was my question.
No, thanks for the question.
Thanks, Damien. And next up, we've got Cardano Boss. Cardano Boss, you're live.
Hello. My question is, you mentioned that you are a regulated company, but I hear that you have licensed networks and unlicensed networks. And as a person who is not involved in this, so for example, I'm from Germany, and I know it's heavily regulated, but there are borderline illegals, used to be illegal radio stations which were transmitting back in the day, and even now they're illegal radio, or let's say gray zone networks going on there. So how do you approach your expansion in places which are, let's say, not interested or hostile? And how is the general situation in such places? How do you approach this, and what are the possibilities also for you to do something there?
So just to be clear, when you use unlicensed spectrum, it doesn't mean you use it and broadcast it and the telecom regulator knows nothing about it. It means that it doesn't carry with it a very heavy levy or cost like licensed spectrum, right? So if you talk about Kenya, for example, in Kenya you can use something called Band 71. That's called TV white space. It's been considered an unlicensed spectrum, and to connect the unconnected, it's usable for a set fee for commercial use in certain areas. Right, so just because it's unlicensed doesn't mean that you're pirate here. It's not like pirate radio. You're still lodging where your radios are, the location of your radios, and the output transmission power of your radios, and all the different things you need to do to the regulator and the governing body, even though you're using an unlicensed spectrum. So that should be clear if it wasn't before. So hostile areas, they don't really exist unless you're talking about Somalia, where it's the only country in the world that they pay the license fee, several tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they refuse to pay for the spectrum. The rest of the world, it's a very well organized system that works. What hasn't worked is there's lots of unused spectrum. So in the last 2 to 3 years, the idea of sharing spectrum, the technology available, of which we're making some of that, to be able to share spectrum without interference, that has come to a position where we can help support other operators around the world to utilize the spectrum that they've got unused. And that could be worth, it could be $1 trillion, I think, of unused spectrum out there. So we're working really closely with mobile network operators around the world to utilize their existing spectrum or work with the spectrum that we own in order to thicken it and fill this gap. So hostility doesn't really exist. It might when we have 100 million customers and 200 million customers and 300 million customers, and we look like we're a threat to become one of the biggest mobile network operators in the world, powered by the people. But by that time, you'll be too big, and the movement will be too big.
So my company, I have a Web2 company. We do a lot of API integrations with telecommunication companies. And what I hear, for example, in Canada, that there is, I don't mean hostility in terms of war or something like that, but of course, other companies which see the market share go away if some cheap or even more effective company comes into the market. You're saying that right now you're tackling the places in which this is not the case, but is there also the idea of going into places like the US, for example, where there are high margins and apparently shitty networks? So what about other markets? What about competitors?
So we are working very hard on the USA because the USA has got a very vibrant market in the trading of spectrum, and also the largest block of open source spectrum in the world, which is the CBRS band. Now, a lot of countries are copying that model, including Germany, to provide shared license spectrum, but they're not anywhere near as advanced. There's already 400,000 odd CBRS nodes being sold in the USA, so it's getting pretty advanced. Now, you mentioned USA, which I've answered. Canada is famously one of the most restrictive countries in the world in terms of competition in telecoms. So you have one of the most open, the USA, and the most closed, Canada, right next to each other. So yes, it's interesting working on the border.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Joker. Good evening. Joker, I think you've gone on to mute.
Oh, sorry. When I was coming up, I didn't hear you call me. How are you doing today?
Really well, thank you. How about yourself? Glad to have you here.
Oh, doing good, thank you. I just really have one question. Me and some of the guys have been debating back and forth about the Earth nodes and the chain followers, and we were just wondering, how many Earth nodes are you going to be able to connect to a single stake pool?
Care to explain more the question, because I don't know what you mean with connecting the Earth node to a stake pool.
Sorry, maybe let me try this again. So, for the side chain, the way I understand it working is that when a stake pool when the stake pool decides it wants to run a validator for the side chain, there's quorum sampling, right? And that stake pool raises his hand. So my question was, is it going to be like one Earth node per validator, or are you going to be able to have multiple Earth nodes per validator?
I think there's a misunderstanding in definitions. When you mention stake pool, what do you mean? Cardano stake pools?
Right, yes, Cardano stake pools.
The Cardano stake pools, they're amazing, but they have nothing to do with the nodes at this point. So that's why I don't quite follow your question.
Okay, maybe I'm just misunderstanding the situation then.
I've got a question for you, Joker. It sounds magical wherever you are, those birds in the background. Where are you?
Oh, I'm just at my house. I walked outside, but I didn't go inside. So World Mobile is running a side chain, right, off of Cardano?
Yes, maybe your understanding comes from the sidechain toolkit paper that was released from Cardano. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So we are not following everything that's happening on that paper. And one of the things that we are not using is the stake pool connection. So what the validators in AYA, in our sidechain, are independent from Cardano stake pools, especially because we are a permission network and we already have 1,000 Earth operators that they don't need to be a stake pool in order to operate the Earth node. So maybe that was the misunderstanding that got you to that question. But yeah, I don't know if you had the chance to read the paper that we put out on the sidechain, the AYA paper. If you give it a read, then I think it will be much clearer for you how it works.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, you guys aren't leveraging Ouroboros at all then?
We are in a different way. The source of trust comes from Cardano. So we derive the randomness of the selection of the committee from Cardano, and we publish the results of the selection of the committee in Cardano. So Ouroboros has a part because it is the consensus protocol of Cardano, but we are not leveraging Ouroboros for the sidechain. The sidechain is a BFT consensus protocol.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joker. And next up, we've got Big Jim Beef. You there, Jim? Here we go. It's a great profile picture as well. You're on mute.
Hello?
Hello.
G'day,
Good evening.
guys. Good morning from Australia. How are you all doing?
Oh, good morning from the future.
Yes.
What can you tell us?
It's cold and wet at the bottom of Tasmania, but apart from that, not a lot. My question was, with Binance and MEXX and some of the other exchanges dropping pairs of like AUD trading pairs and different things like that, there seems to be a trend of like higher regulation through centralized exchanges. And does World Mobile have any plans of making things a little bit easier in terms of transferring World Mobile token to fiat and fiat back the other way?
Zach, you should bring Zach up. I see he's in the crowd.
Zach, you've been summoned.
Summon him from the depths of... Where is he? Sydney?
He's close to you. He's in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. I recommend you ask that question in the chat where Zach can answer in the community.
Yeah. Awesome.
He'll have some answers for you.
Getting my pregnant missus ready for work and my son.
Hey. All right, Zach.
Hey, bud.
I was just asking, with Binance and MEXX and the other exchanges tending to start dropping the AUD pairs, does World Mobile Token have any plans on making like the transfer of fiat from any country to World Mobile Token and back again easier through the app or any other method?
We've been working with a third-party fiat on and off-ramp provider, which will allow for a much easier user experience when it comes to purchasing the token. What I can't promise is where regulation might change in different jurisdictions, because that's something that we have no control over, but the third-party payment provider allows for card purchasing. So like Binance in Australia still allows for you to purchase with a credit card. They just lost their, I think it was like their direct bank payment provider. So we've been working with like a third-party provider in that sense.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. That was pretty much my only question. Catch us later.
No worries. Thanks, bud.
Next up, we got a good old friend, Sidechain. Yo, it's been a while. How's it going? Oh, lost you again. You're on mute.
You're still on mute.
Yeah, Sidechain, you're a speaker.
Oh, hey.
But
What's up, guys?
Here we go.
Same thing happened with me and Joker. As I was coming up, I didn't hear you. So I just have a question. So how do you guys prevent like a 51% scenario with who's tossed into the quorum, for like a given set of time? If you don't leverage like some sidechain, main chain credentials and have like a one-to-one setup from SPO to EarthNode, I'm cool with that. I'm just curious. What's the purpose in borrowing a quorum push from Cardano then? I'm just curious to understand how that works.
So, as mentioned to Joker, we are using a BFT protocol in the sidechain.
I understand. I get it. You're using Tendermint. I'm totally cool with that. That makes perfect sense.
No, we're not using Tendermint.
Either way, look, it doesn't even matter whether you're using OBFT, Tendermint, or something brand new. I'm talking about the quorum that's provided. So what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of the quorum, you refer to
the list,
consensus?
Yes. No. I'm referring to the list of operators that gets pushed down from Cardano to execute the War Mobile chain for a set of time. That's the whole purpose. When Charles talks about, Cardano provides the quorum for a side chain, that's exactly what he's talking about. So
yeah, but
yeah.
as I mentioned before, they release a paper on the side chains that we are not following 100%, and the quorum part is the one that we are not using.
Okay, so no quorum at all.
Yes, your connection broke. Yes, there.
Oh yeah, no, that clears. I mean, that clears it up, man. That's cool. I mean, that answers that. You know, that's a mic drop.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
What does it clear up, man?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I thought this entire time that the whole purpose of like the ENT NFTs being native to Cardano was going to have something to do like a script and like sidechain credentials, basically allowing the nodes to be split up by Ouroboros. You know, so you have a random diverse set of Earth node operators producing blocks, you know, for a set period of time. I thought that's what the whole intent and purpose of it was, but I guess not.
The connection was a bit choppy for me, but let me then go back and say how it works generally. So Cardano NFTs and WMT, they are in Cardano, and what we are doing in the ISA chain is observing what's happening on Cardano in terms of the NFTs and staking. The Earth node operators register the Earth node in Cardano on a smart contract. The delegators delegate their WMT in Cardano on a second smart contract that is used in the first one. And Aya is observing that and is injecting that stake and reflecting that stake in the consensus and the block producing of the sidechain.
Okay, so here's a question I would have then. So how do you avoid, you know, one entity owning, you know, and it's control the owning like 1% of like producing on, you know, world like awkward period of time. How do you stop a 51% situation?
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear you properly. I don't know if it's only me or you guys can.
That's very choppy. You need a World Mobile SIM.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you?
Listen, sidechain.
Why don't you write your questions to
Yeah,
directly, and he'll
exactly.
All right.
Feel free to write to me.
Can you hear me now? I should be good.
I can hear you now.
Okay, so how do you stop a 51% situation on the World Mobile chain? If you're not, you know, like how do you know for sure that somebody doesn't go out and purchase and own the majority of these Earth node NFTs? Then I know it's kind of a tedious troll question, but you know, like I am curious.
Yeah. How do you know that it's not the same entity operating the whole Bitcoin network? It's kind of the same question, right?
Well, I mean, you kind of do. I mean, two pools own over 51% of hash there. That's a whole different discussion. That's horrendous. But
in our case, being a permission network, we can leverage some sort of KYC if needed. So that's an advantage there.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys bringing me up. Sorry for my bad connection and all that, but cool. All right.
Thanks.
No problem.
Man. Take care.
Great advert for Operation Airnode in the US today with the connections in the USA. Next up, we've got Madball. Good evening, Madball. Another bovine profile
Mr.
picture.
T.
This is great.
Well, mobile team, how's everybody? Great day, everybody. I just want to say thank you for such a great space, so informative, keeping us updated on everything that's going on. I appreciate you all.
Thanks, man.
We appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
You've been here since the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to take a trip to Zanzibar soon. I was wondering, is there any connections I can link up with somebody out there?
Definitely. Just give us a message, and I'll connect you with RJ or any one of the team out there.
All right.
Give you a private
I
talk.
appreciate you, and have a great day.
Thanks, Mad Bull. You too.
Right, next up, we've got Albert, and I think this may be the last question. We've been on for 2.5 hours. This is our longest space yet. Albert, you're up. How you doing?
Doing good. Give me one moment here. My question was about the Dish Network partnership mentioned like in 2021. I haven't heard anything about it since.
For World Mobile, there's never been a Dish Network partnership. For Cardano, there are some things going on, but I'm not the right person to speak about that. We do know Dish. We have spoken to Dish. I don't rule out any future collaborations with Dish, but World Mobile is pretty much trying to do what Dish is doing, just in a way where it's a people-powered built network.
Well, thank you guys
But
for
they
the
can go
opportunity.
ahead.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Albert. Right. I think that's bringing us to the end of this month's community update. Have we got any last questions? Last call? 2.5 hours in.
How do you sound so fresh, Mike, after 2.5 hours?
That's what 2 weeks in Zanzibar does for you.
Good job.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm signing out.
Thanks,
Been a great
everyone.
one.
Yeah,
Take care.
thanks
Good
for
night.
your time, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Cheers.
all. See you later.
Bye.